The attack itself was horrendous. Here is what we know about the suspect. The New York terror attack suspect's name is Saifullo Habib. I want to pronounce this correctly, but I'm not going to. Habibulevich Saipov. And he is a Muslim. He did this in the name of ISIS, according to John Miller, the NYPD Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism. Saipov had been planning the attack for a number of weeks, according to Miller, and appeared to have followed ISIS instructions as to how to carry out such attacks. As soon as a truck ran into a bunch of people, he had to figure that this was an Islamic terror attack simply because that's been the mode of operation it's been modus operandi for ISIS for years now. They started it in Jerusalem. They carried it over into Nice, France. They did it at the Berlin Christmas market. They've done it in London. So ramming trucks into groups of civilians has been an ISIS staple for a while now. He said that a handwritten note in Arabic found near the scene had both symbols and words, but the gist was that the Islamic State would endure forever. This, of course, is not true, since the Islamic State no longer really even endures. So this is the deadliest terror attack in New York City since 9/11. And the guy's 29, and he plowed into bicyclists and pedestrians just blocks away from the World Trade Center on Tuesday afternoon. Here's some video of the aftermath.
Oh my God, twice as rijdt voor West Street going to Houston. Elkaar hebben getreden 4 bicyclists. It sounds like a terrorist attack. I'm not sure what it is. Einer respondt nicht. 3 leben noch.
Just horrific. We've blurred out some of the bodies here. That's why you're not seeing more. But it's just a horrific aftermath. 6 victims killed instantly. 2 others died later on the way to the hospital. More than a dozen trying to recover. Bill de Blasio, of course, came out and said this was an act of terror. And he said it was a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea what was about to hit them. Here is some video of the suspect, actually, who is, well, actually, we can play de Blasio. Here's what de Blasio had to say about it.
It's a very painful day in our city. Horrible tragedy on the West Side. Let me be clear that based on the information we have at this moment, this was an act of terror, and a particularly cowardly act of terror aimed at innocent civilians, aimed at people going about their lives who had no idea of what was about to hit them.
It was pretty clear, obviously, immediately that this was an Islamist terror attack. The note was left in the car that made reference to ISIS. The guy popped out of the car. The terrorist popped out of the truck, and he was carrying, I guess, a paintball gun. The idea here is that he was attempting to provoke death by cop. He wanted to make the police think that he was going to shoot them, and so he was carrying around these guns. Obviously, he did not have more weapons on him, which is definitely a good thing. There are people like Nick Kristof yesterday saying, well, that's because of gun control in New York City. Well, no, it really isn't. If you're willing to get in a car and run over people, the idea that you can't drive upstate, grab some guns, drive back downstate, and run around New York City shooting people seems kind of ridiculous. In any case, here's some video of the suspect yesterday.
He sprinted towards a group of kids.
Towards the group of kids?
That's what I saw, yeah.
And about how long did this take place? How long were you watching him for?
I was watching them for about maybe 20 seconds before I had to just run back in just for my own safety.
Right, and you say they looked real, but could you tell, could you hear if any kind of rounds of ammunition were coming out of his gun, or you couldn't tell that?
I did not hear any shots, and I didn't see him fire at anybody.
Okay, so he didn't end up firing at anybody because the guns themselves were not real, and again, he was attempting to provoke death by cop. Here's a photo of the suspect. Here's what he looked like. Looks like a nice clean-cut Mormon boy, obviously. In any case, this has obviously provoked a bunch of media firestorm, and it's provoked some response from the President of the United States. I want to talk about the response from the media and the response from the President of the United States, and I think that we ought to be as objective as we possibly can in looking at these responses. Objectively speaking, the response from the media is always quite awful on all of this, and I think that we ought to start there. Here are some of the headlines that you saw yesterday. So you're going to see a couple of headlines. One is from Fox News, and the other is from CNN, and you'll see the difference immediately. The headline from Fox News was, at least 6 dead after suspect crashes truck in Lower Manhattan, shouts Allahu Akbar, right? Allahu Akbar means, it means Allah is great, and then here was the headline from CNN. Fatalities reported after truck rams people in Manhattan. Again, one of those runaway trucks, you know, they just go off on their own. It's very weird how that happens, right? Leaving out the whole Allahu Akbar routine. Instead, they just say that again, a truck went off on its own and committed these egregious acts of terrorism. We have to be careful of our runaway truck population, because obviously those trucks cannot be trusted. Anyone in a Ford F-150, beware, your truck may turn on you. And then CNN ran this chyron in the middle of this after the Allahu Akbar information came out. It said, witnesses, suspect was yelling, God is great in Arabic. Well, no, the suspect was yelling Allahu Akbar. Right? And there is a difference, right? Saying God is great in Arabic is toning down a little bit exactly what Allahu Akbar is. It is the typical kind of thing that is screamed by terrorists as they are in the midst of terror attacks. And there are a lot of people who are obviously upset about that particular chyron, because the idea here that God is great is the exact equivalent to Allahu Akbar is not true, considering that there's significant, I mean, even in the Islamic community, the idea that the God that is worshipped by Islamic terrorists is the same as the God that is worshipped in Judeo-Christian societies. That's a pretty dicey proposition at best. And so CNN was getting a lot of flack over this, especially since everyone in the Western world knows what Allahu Akbar means now, and they know that it means a radical Islamic terrorist was just running around killing people. The equation of the Judeo-Christian God with the God of radical Islamic terror is quite egregious and quite disgusting. So